the chief of staff for Magen David Adom, that is Israel's national emergency medical disaster and ambulance service. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. I know you have a lot going on right now, so we definitely appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Josh. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And first off, I do want to ask you, because we are getting word about the sirens that are blaring there across Israel and more missiles that have been launched by Iran at Israel. Have you heard of any injuries, any casualties at this point as a result of this latest attack?
Well, I'm currently at the secure Magen David Adom Central Dispatch Center, and I can report that currently there are no injuries as a result of the recent missile attack on Israel. Magen David Adom did receive few calls for people that tripped or injured their limbs falling when they were rushing to shelters, but as for now, no injuries as a result of the latest attack.
And we've seen the photos that have come in, the videos over the past week. But can you explain what the situation has been like overall on the ground there over the last several days?
So as you mentioned, this is the sixth day of the war. Each night, and I repeat, each night there are at least 2, 3, sometimes 5 missile attacks. That means that millions of Israelis have to rush into shelters as missiles waiting something like 600, carrying 600 pounds of explosive, sometimes 800 pounds of explosive are being shot towards civilian population. This is very imitating, and I think the state of Israel hasn't experienced this kind of ballistic missile attack since 1991, 34 years ago, the Desert Storm or the first Persian Gulf, first Gulf War, as you remember.
How exactly do you go about prioritizing your personnel, your officials there on the ground, as we know that so many civilian areas are being targeted? There's maybe damage here and civilians injured over here. So how do you kind of prioritize where to go?
So Magen David Adom operates a state-of-the-art technological system that helps us make a rapid assessment of any call comes from after a missile attack. We use technology to understand what's the worst incident and send the teams over there. Also, Magen David Adom is embedded into community. That means that we have paramedics living at the communities, thus responding immediately after a missile hit. Josh, please understand, while the people of Israel are obliged to remain in shelters 10 minutes after the attack, Magen David Adom teams rush outside of the shelters in order to assess the situation and start providing medical attention immediately after the missile strike.
And Magen David Adom, as far as the potential here for any sort of regional conflict, can you explain to me how that organization, that agency, is prepared for this? Are you prepared for this to become even larger of a war?
Well, Magen David Adom is preparing himself on a daily basis. We are not waiting for something to happen and then prepare. We have a fleet of over 1,900 ambulances. 1,900 ambulances. Obviously, this is not what the state of Israel needs for a daily operation when there is no war. But once a war starts, immediately we man almost 2,000 ambulances. This is exactly what happened on Friday night when the word came in that the war started. Immediately we manned the entire fleet of ambulances. We called upon the tens of thousands of volunteers that we have to be prepared, to be ready. And this is how you respond for war or for a conflict. Either it's a small one or either it's on a large scale.
Something we've seen a lot when you do talk about the Ukraine-Russia conflict that's been going on now for more than 3 years, we have seen attacks happen, and then when first responders do show up on the scene, there are additional attacks that are targeting those first responders. Have you seen anything like that happening there in Israel specifically?
Well, unfortunately, yes. As I mentioned, Magen David Adom teams are operating in the field, even putting themselves in harm's way. This is why we provide them with personal protective equipment. Nevertheless, just 3 days ago, our team that was responding to one of the emergencies was caught on a siren. They did exactly what they had to do: stop the vehicle outside and just ducked in in a trench nearby, where a missile hit the street and the blast completely destroyed the ambulance. Thank God the paramedics had only minor injuries due to glass fragments, but we know today that Magen David Adom teams are under threat. On October 7th, there were 7 Magen David Adom paramedics that were murdered by terrorists while providing medical attention. Unfortunately, the fact that Magen David Adom teams are humanitarians doesn't provide them protection anymore.
On that same note here, what are some of the biggest challenges that you all faced while you're there on the ground? As you mentioned, of course, you have the rocket fire coming in, you have one area, and then maybe that same area is hit while you're responding. So what kind of challenges overall do you face?
Well, exactly as you mentioned, Josh, the first challenge is the prolonged response to the different scenes. Please understand, when a ballistic missile hit, it destroys a building. Sometimes it destroys several buildings. That means that Magen David Adom personnel have to stay on site, work together with the Home Front Command. The IDF extract the injured, and Magen David Adom provide the medical attention. But that means that our paramedics stay on site for sometimes for hours, and at the same time, they are under threat of more missiles coming in. Additional challenge on the organizational level is maintaining the preparedness and the response level for a prolonged time. From what we follow in the media in Israel, we are seeing a U.S. involvement or a beginning of involvement, something that may say that we can go for a long time of war. And this is, we have to make sure that we'll be able to respond for a quite long period of time.
My last question here, your message to Israeli civilians who right now, many of whom are seeking shelter, they're hearing sirens that have been blaring now for 6 days in a row. What is your message to those folks out there?
Well, my first message is follow the Home Front Command instructions. They are life-saving. Do not get out of the shelter before you are instructed to. Go immediately to the shelter when siren is heard. God forbid, if something is wrong, if you are not feeling well, or if you heard something, call Magen David Adom. Magen David Adom, Israel's National Emergency Medical Services, stands with the people of Israel in these harsh times, and we will continue doing so.
All right. Ouri Shacham, of course, the chief of staff there for Magen David Adom. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and break down the situation there on the ground. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Josh. Let's pray for a quiet night and for the cessation of this war as fast as possible.
Absolutely. Stay safe out there.